Hello and welcome to this episode of the Chamber Connect podcast from the Huron Chamber of Commerce. My name is Colin Carmichael. I'm the Executive Director of the Huron Chamber of Commerce and the host of this podcast. Very pleased to welcome this week's guest, Dana Soucie from the Four-County Labor Market Planning Board. Dana, that's probably the last time I'm going to say all of those words together because it is a mouthful. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Colin. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, we've done this before, and in many ways, actually, we're kind of the genesis of this podcast because I think it was about a year ago we did a little video interview talking about labor statistics, and it went up on the YouTube and was successful, I think, in the sense of educating some folks about the how labor stats work and that kind of thing. And I know you have used that video a few times for various things, and that's really kind of what led to the idea for this podcast of being able to do similar interviews with all kinds of folks, including yourself. So glad to have you back to the podcast in many ways. So why don't we start, Dana, as I always do, and have you just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about yourself, and then the planning board as well, and what your organization does, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I don't blame you for not wanting to say Four-County Labor Market Planning Board very often. It took me almost 2 years to answer the phone. So yeah, a little bit about me. I actually come from Northwest Ontario. I have a background in business administration, economic development from that area. I moved down here about 10 years ago, and I was working in HR. I got the opportunity to work for the Four-County Labor Market Planning Board under our training program. And today I sit as the executive director now on our core labor market, basically business side. So what do we do at the Four-County Labor Market Planning Board? Well, the planning board's been around 28 years this year, and our responsibility is to help with workforce planning. We know that our area is unique, and our role under the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training, and Skills Development, say that one real fast too.
It's actually a little bit worse than yours. So
yeah, exactly. So I have two. So yeah. Basically, what we're tasked with is to look at the data and basically do an analysis of how are we different, what are our challenges, what are the opportunities that we have in our local area around workforce. This is essential. Working with other partners, we have many partners across the four counties, and we're just basically looking to ensure that our local region has a sustainable workforce for its future.
So when we say four counties, we're talking Huron, Perth, Bruce, Grey, right? Yeah. And that's that group of counties, also known as the Stratford Bruce Peninsula Economic Region, is another term for that you'll see in your reports and others. If folks have heard of the Four-County Labor Market Planning Board, hey, look, I said it. It's probably from your monthly, unemployment rate reports that come out every month. Why don't talk a bit about those? I mean, that's the most visible part of your work, I think, for most people, and that's what gets you on in the media sometimes, and that kind of thing. So maybe talk a bit about those reports and themselves, and then maybe we can go into the other types of data that you look at, and kind of what those numbers actually mean, and the impact on Huron County and the region.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the biggest part of what we do. We are a small but mighty team. There are three of us here. I'm the executive director. I have two researchers. And their main role is to analyze the data and create reports for the public so that we can educate you on what is happening in the region. We do the monthly unemployment rates, those are done monthly. But every year we release 4 reports. One is an annual report done every year. That's the local labor market plan, and it has all the details that everybody needs. It's the biggest report that we do. It looks at year over year trends. Where are we going? What's changing? Those type of things. And then we start to look into sectors. And the sectors or the other areas that need development will either fall under employer engagement, meaning we need to find out from the businesses what's happening and those type of things, or it's a workforce development initiative. So we're looking at what do we need to do to develop the workforce in that particular sector, or what are the challenges happening. So this year we are doing health, youth, and immigration focused reports. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, what everybody can expect from this year. On our website, we do have, and I'll plug www.planningboard.ca/reports. You want to know what we're putting out for reports and resources, that's the place to find it.
The monthly reports, the unemployment rates report that comes out also has, things like it talks about the sector for sure, talks about, the total new jobs, and even I'm going to mangle these terms because it is a very a lot of these words have very specific meanings in the labor stats world, and so things like participation rate, of course, which is for the folks at home, participation rate being the number of people working or looking for work. So that's your employed and unemployed together uh, as a percentage of the working age population. And see, already we've lost, I know, half our viewers whose heads just went, wait, it's half of the what, and as you know, Dana, there was a pretty steep learning curve for me as well when I came into this role and realized quite quickly just how important the labor market is to the economy here in Huron County, and had to have a couple of crash courses from you and your staff, and in terms of understanding the unique characteristics of the 4 counties, but Huron County by extension. So we should probably talk about that a little bit, and just how unique this region is compared to literally anywhere else in the province, at least. And the most common phrase is, that you and I both use on a regular basis is, among the lowest, consistently the lowest, or at least second lowest unemployment rate in the province. And that kind of goes back and forth between us and Northwest Ontario, where maybe it's your fault. That's how you. But
Calling me and
yeah,
call.
yeah, but so Thunder Bay and that, that huge region.
Yeah.
If we're not the lowest unemployment rate, they are, and vice versa, right? It pretty
Or
much,
Muskoka, or
yeah,
Muskoka.
it
Yeah,
kind of depends on, sure.
we have to fight for it. We like to.
So what does that mean? Maybe talk a little bit well, I mean, is that a new thing? Is it a temporary thing? And then what are the ramifications on our economy when our unemployment rate is what, 4.9? I think it was last month. We get new data um, this Friday, right? Or well, today when this
Wow.
yeah, tomorrow, right? So, anyway, at
Or
least at the time of recording, it's tomorrow. Uh, so we'll see what the new number is, but the number for August was 4.9, I think, in our region, and yeah. So what does that mean? If people hear that unemployment rate is 4.9%, um,
not a whole lot to the layman term, to be honest, because as you indicated, we're looking at a lot of indicators. There's not one indicator that tells us what makes us unique. There's multiple. So we are monitoring the unemployment rate on a monthly basis, but as seasonal and jobs change, we don't hang our hat on what's going on. We're monitoring it for current affair issues like tariffs to see if we're noticing any changes in the sectors. But it's the yearly data that you're going to find in the local labor market plan that's going to shock you and show you what's different, because we often will compare ourselves to Ontario. I'm going to give you two stats that are going to kind of blow your mind. So living wages, when you look at the chart, and we did release this, and it is in the labor market plan, is the second highest in all of Ontario, right below Toronto. Our average wages is the lowest in Ontario, or very close to. So when you combine those two factors with a low pool of workers, because we have a low unemployment rate, that just leaves us, and combined with looking at participation rates, we have an aging population that are not participating. Our aging or better than groups, I like to say, are not participating at the same rate as Ontario is. So we are not the same as the rest of the province, and we are very different than other regions because of our geography, because of our ability to attract and retain our youth. We have a lot more stake in the game in ensuring that we're looking ahead and planning well for the labor force that we're going to need. We have a lot of expansions happening. We have a lot of good news stories. So, Bruce Power is expanding, the Meaford projects, clean energy project we put out last year will explain what's coming. We need to prepare for that. We're looking at the health sector. We need to prepare for that. So our area is unique. Yeah.
So yeah, I want to pick up on a couple of things there, and these are things that come up in conversations I have with my members on a regular basis, and it usually comes out of headlines that folks see on kind of national or regional newscasts, and so things like or podcasts, other podcasts, but things like skyrocketing unemployment, skyrocketing youth unemployment in particular, is something that is has been quoted several times as an indication of how terrible the economy is or whatever. But we don't have that here, right? I mean, like our youth unemployment is extreme in the other way, isn't that right?
That's correct. So when we look at the participation rate of our youth cohorts, they are participating at a much higher rate than Ontario, meaning we have more youth in the market than other regions in Ontario do. We are not seeing that same trend in our data.
Right. And I mean, part of that is the nature of a rural area, right? We don't have large university campuses with thousands of students looking for work every September, which spikes the numbers in Waterloo and London and a few other places. There are other aspects that you can kind of explain away in terms of why our numbers are different, but it largely comes down to numbers. Like we just don't have the overall number of youth, for example, that would even allow for that high unemployment. I mean, you have kids wandering around doing, teenagers wandering around with nothing to do. Most teenagers I know are working, even one, if not two jobs, right? And so it's just that disconnect between what they see on the news or what they hear on a podcast or what they, even hear word of mouth versus what the data actually shows. And I think that's part of why by having your data is so important. The other piece I wanted to pick up on is that participation rate, aging population. And we talked about this off mic before we started here. So, but I want to say it again to have it on the record. When I was crunching some numbers last night just for fun because I'm as nerdy as you are with that stuff, and So when we look at the participation rate in our area versus the Ontario average, right? So I don't have the exact numbers. They fluctuate month to month anyway, so it doesn't really matter as long as So we're in the kind of the mid 50s here, and kind of the mid 60s as the or low 60s anyway is the provincial average in terms of participation rate. So the people who are working and want to work divided by into the adult population. And so I think there was a 6 point spread, 6 percentage points between our participation rate and the provincial average. And that doesn't seem like a lot to, if you just look at 6 percentage points, wow, we're almost there. It's how much different can that be? And and so it's easy to dismiss that as not relevant, not important. But when you look at the real numbers, and in this case, I drilled it right down to Huron County. So take Huron County's population of 62,000, and do the math on that 6 percentage points of the whatever. We'd have to add 5,000 people to the workforce in Huron County in order to get to that in order to close that 6 percentage point spread to the provincial average. So that's one of our mid-sized towns. That's Blythe. Or I'm not sure what the population of Blythe is, but it's a significant chunk. That we would have to add to the already existing workforce in order to reach just the provincial average. Um, and of course, then you have to ask the question, well, where are they going to live? And how are they going to, there's all these things, right? You can't just add 5,000 people to quote unquote solve that problem. So I say all of that only to point out to our viewers, and because I'm preaching to the choir, for you, this stuff, that it's that not only is it complex, and it bleeds into housing and transportation, and there's we could talk about transportation too, because you have something coming up on that, but it's the numbers aren't as always as simple as they look, right? Maybe that's the point I'm trying to get to.
Yep. And absolutely. Um, I always say I bring my brains to the table when you want to talk data, because I bring my researchers. They live in these data tables. They're analyzing, they're comparing, they're talking to other regions. We're not just looking at this alone. We're looking at this as a whole. We're leaders in, workforce planning boards meet regularly. We talk, we compare data. We look at these intricacies, because data can only tell you so much. We need to talk to our employers. We need to talk to our job seekers. Hence, that's why we did the Employer One survey. That was very important. We are looking at other methods of collecting that from employers. Stay tuned for that. And we're always looking at ways that we can collect more data. And we know that our municipalities need that at a local level to get down to that lens. Hence, I'm going to bridge into our most recent initiative that we took on with 6 regions. So we are leading the Southwest Ontario Data Consortium. What it is it's a consortium that allows us to access the community data program. It's a dashboard of very intricate, some customized data, but basically they're all Canadian. It's a Canada-wide initiative to collect data that we need to make decisions. They're looking at what's needed next year. I just had my first lead meeting yesterday. And so they're already looking ahead. Issues come up like tariffs. I've been around for a little while now, and I've seen cycles. So your
Mhm.
sectors are going to change with time. And, things change drastically when something new comes on the horizon in our economy, and we can't always plan for those. But we need to keep an eye on the data and what's happening, because this data will help decision makers. So we have information sessions coming up. on October 30th and November 4th. If you didn't sign up yet, you can sign up through our newsletter. It is on our website under news. There's links there to do that, or you can contact us directly. But we're going to be talking about what that means to our region as far as accessing data, understanding data, and knowing that we are here.
Mhm.
We are here for that.
Yeah. Well, and there is quite an ecosystem, I guess, of folks who not only use this data, but talk about this data, and you and I and half a dozen others often find ourselves in the same meetings, the same roundtables, the same because this issue is so important. Huron County ECDEV, the employment services out of Bruce County. The colleges are involved, the school board, all of those folks are involved in trying to understand the trends, and that comes from the data. And then, as you said, making those decisions, understanding what to do with that data and what it, and what it means. And so having access to that data is there's nothing quite so nerdy as a Southwest Data Consortium. I mean, it's right up my alley.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. So
yeah.
when I announced it, I was like, I was so excited. And then other people look at me and going, what are you so excited about? Oh, I guess you're not a data nerd, I said. Um, so yeah, it's pretty exciting for us. It's pretty exciting for our founding members because we're going to have more access to be able to service our regions and our communities.
Yeah.
And that's really what our role is to support the workforce initiatives and planning for this region. That is our goal.
And how it intersects with all those
Yep,
other things, right? Because you can't look at labor force statistics in isolation,
no,
because um, especially in a rural area where transportation becomes a huge barrier to employment, and one of the questions, is always, so those 4.9 that are unemployed, why are they unemployed when we have so many job vacancies, right? So,
exactly.
and there are any number of reasons, but a significant number of those would be, someone who's in Brussels, and the job that they want is in Goderich or Clinton or Seaforth, but they don't have a way to get there, right?
Exactly.
And
Or a way to move there.
well,
Um,
well, sure. I mean, yeah, it's easy to say, well, just move there, but I mean, right?
yes, but that's just not reality because we have housing, transportation challenges, hence my hop in technologies,
Yeah.
information
Do
sessions.
you want to plug that one too
I
then?
can plug that. That's on October 28th. It's also in our newsletter. Contact us directly if you want more information. Basically, we're always talking to our neighbors. We're talking to our partners at Ontario levels, Canadian levels, where there's niche markets, of things happening that are innovative, and we need to be at the forefront of that. So another example is we are now on the Canadian Nuclear Association. We're an affiliate member. We go to the meetings. We're listening to what's happening in the nuclear sector. It's a niche market. We're all going to be sharing the people with those skills amongst the nuclear sector. So why not talk Canada wide?
Hmm.
Right? So that's kind of the thing where, we're local, yes, but we are spreading our wings because we need to understand what's happening externally
Yeah.
that's also affecting us.
And not only is it important, you for you and I, so because I sit on several kind of province-wide or whatever, committees and task forces and work groups and name it, and as important as it is for us to hear from those other areas, as you say, it's also important for us as representing Huron County or rural Ontario to bring that rural voice to those tables as well. And it's almost as important. You were talking about the leads meeting you had
Yep.
yesterday on the data consortium, and I have to say, I have to interrupt myself for 1 second because not that my kids will listen to this or watch this podcast, but they will argue with me about data versus data until I don't know what the right pronunciation
I don't
is.
care what they
But as a
call
Star Trek nerd, I will always say data because that was his name. But anyway, that was an aside. What I was saying is, you were at this data consortium leads meeting with representatives from Calgary and Toronto and these big cities, and it's important to have a rural voice there, and it's part of kind of as a rural chamber. It's important for the Huron Chamber to have a voice at Ontario, Canada-wide tables as well, and bring that rural voice. So, well, one example is we are part of the advisory group for this reimagining immigration project that has a new proposal for the Canadian Immigration Workers Program to replace the Temporary Foreign Workers Program. And you and I have talked about TFWs a lot over time, and because obviously it's both a it's both a symptom and a cure in a way for some of our labor issues in Huron County. And so, but I am on that national group so that the rural voice, is heard there. Um, so yeah, so I guess maybe what are your thoughts on that ecosystem that we were talking about? And like I kind of joked that you and I end up on a lot of the same meetings, but it is an important kind of group of people that we deal with on a regular basis who are all working together in our own ways. And I'm answering my question for myself instead of letting you do what.
it.
But what's your experience with that group and its importance to Huron County specifically for me, but even larger than that?
Yeah, absolutely. Collaboration is a word I've taken away years ago from my leadership program that I took. Collaboration is more important than ever now because it takes a village. We're in dire position. I've never seen our workforce at this level in Canada ever, in the world ever, in our region in Northwestern Ontario. We're not in the same story we've ever seen before. It's going to take innovation. It's going to take outside the box thinking. And so if somebody says, hey, do you want to meet? Yes. Yes, that is always my answer because the more information we have and the more we understand what each of us is doing, we can collaborate on projects that are going to make a bigger impact. And the ministry wants that. When
Hmm.
they're handing out all these millions of funding, they want to see partnerships. They want to see you have a like project and you have all said this is an issue for your area. Yeah, here's the money.
Yeah.
My wish, I want a medical school here. So I'm just going to throw that out there on the podcast.
Sure. Let's talk about that for half an hour. No.
Well, I haven't found my magical wand yet, but when I do, there's going to be a whole lot of new services for our region because that's what we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the data consortium is a bit of a I don't know if it's a coup for this area, but it certainly, it speaks to the leadership potential out here in the sticks, that we can lead as well, and that our rural organizations can take the lead on these things, and provide that much needed resource. Um, I'm looking at my did we miss anything? What was there anything else that's important to share? I mean, this isn't the last time you'll be on the podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We may if anything really significantly newsworthy comes up in the monthly reports or anything else, we'll drop a bonus episode in the podcast feed here just to cover that off. But Yeah. What do you have any expectations of what are the numbers going to look like tomorrow when they come out, or is it always just a big surprise to you as it is for everyone else?
No, I don't think anything's going to be shocking. We are watching it go up and down. Nothing's been alarming, really. Positive news, actually.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to several of our other partners, who I know you're speaking to as well. And the data showing what they're seeing. So we are riding out this tariffs much better than anticipated.
Yeah.
And I really am, I'm feeling very positive for our area. We have a lot of really good people doing a lot of really good and innovative things. And, rural people are hardy. I
Yeah.
come from Northwestern Ontario, so I can say that. I know that. I come from that area and we were hardy. We fought when times were tough, and we'll do it here too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think um, this area has shown resilience, and that's an overused term. I don't think anyone ever stopped using it since COVID probably. But it's true. When our local businesses were able to weather that storm, the COVID storm,
Yep.
much better than some of our urban counterparts because of the local connection. And time and time again, we've seen examples of where our rural areas just have more resilience. Not because we're tougher, although you could argue we are, but there's more connection here,
Right.
right? And so, which makes it a fun place to do the work that we do. You know? So,
Exactly why I stayed in the end. I left the industry for a little while and went off and tried other things, and somehow it pulled me back in, Colin. So rural community development will always be at the heart of what I do, and I have a passion for supporting my communities. I've done it in tourism, I did it in ec dev. I'm now working in workforce. I just can't seem to leave it because
mhm,
it is rewarding, and rural is where it is.
yeah.
So anybody in the urban areas, you want to come to urban, we got the job for you. The rural, sorry.
Well, with that, we'll start to wrap up here, and so what if anything, anyone listening to this or watching this has questions about the labor stats or any of our labor market, any of that stuff, if we've piqued your curiosity, then feel free to reach out to me or Dana directly. I'm sure, as you said, is planningboard.ca is her website. Here on chamber.ca is my website. You can find us both there on those respective sites, and we are both happy to chat about labor stats for hours. So don't be shy. If you if one of the most common things is business owners not understanding why they don't have any applicants for their jobs, and they think there's something wrong with them or with the job, and it's not. It's just there aren't enough people to fill all the jobs. So, but anything like that, we're happy to answer those questions as best we can, or go find the data, and pretty soon that'll be easier than ever to find the data to answer those questions, and that's kind of why we're here. So I will thank you, Dana, for coming on the show and doing the podcast again, and we will have you back, I'm sure, when there's something newsworthy or just when we want to nerd out about labor stats again.
Yes, that sounds great. Thank you for inviting me, and yeah, careful what you wish for inviting me. I can talk stats and data all day.
Well, I think we've kept this episode close enough to that half-hour mark that we're in good shape. But at some point, maybe we'll have a special extended length version of where we can dig into the numbers, and maybe we'll bring your research staff along too and dig into that. But until then, Dana, thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.